Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining the Illinois 6th Congressional Democrats Town Hall on Finance and the Economy. My name is Patrick Watson, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Illinois 6th Congressional District Democrats. We are happy to have all of you join us today. The economy is a critical issue, especially now with us being in one of the greatest economic downturns since the Great Depression. We're going to hear from a fantastic panel today that's going to talk about their specific offices that they're running for, their roles, and their expertise in their background. So can't wait to hear from this panel. One plug that I do want to give before we go into the town hall is please share this event with others that you know. You can share via our social media platforms. They're all at Sixth Dems. So that's on Facebook, that's Instagram, and Twitter, and on YouTube. Please go ahead and share the event itself. I want to kick it over now to Nancy Shepherdson, who's the other co-chair of the Illinois 6th Congressional District Democrats.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm real pleased to be in this this group today because I think, like all of the rest of the panels and town halls that we've had, I think this is going to be a fascinating exploration of the economy and what's been happening to it with COVID and how we're going to recover from that, and many other topics that are of interest to our panelists. Our moderator tonight is Leslie Coolidge, and she is a CPA and a retired partner with KPMG in the tax division. And I know Leslie because she and I worked on her campaign for Congress in 2012, and she did so well that I think she really opened up the path for Sean Casten to actually win the seat in 2018. And so I'm appreciative of Leslie's efforts, and I think she's going to be a wonderful moderator tonight. So welcome, Leslie, and go ahead and kick it off.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. We have a great panel of candidates this evening, and we're going to start with allowing each of the candidates to give us an introduction both to themselves and their backgrounds, and also tell us what office they're running for, some of which will, we know a lot about, and others I think we don't know as much about. So we're going to just start with that, and I'm going to go around and call on each of you just to maintain a little order. So Ken, I think we'll start with you. And remember to unmute yourselves when you talk.
Thank you, Leslie. My name is Ken Mejia Beal. I am running for Illinois State Rep in District 42. District 42 is a little bit of Warrenville, West Chicago, Lisle, Naperville, Carroll Stream, Wheaton, Winfield. Okay, I named them all. About my background, I have been in the finance industry for my entire career. And what I've done in the finance industry, I started out right in college as a teller at a bank. And I worked my way through the finance side of the industry. And then I moved into the mortgage/real estate portion of the industry. So I've dealt in property tax analytics, debt to income analytics, and loan to value ratios.
Super, thank you. Brenda?
Hello, I'm Brenda Rodgers, and I live in Elgin. I have lived in Elgin for 40 years. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for 30 years, and I am running for Kane County Recorder of Deeds. I want to thank you guys for having this and allowing me to be a part of it. I've served on many boards and commissions within the Elgin area, the Boys and Girls Club, Duck Race, Bethesda Community Development Center, which was a daycare center, LULAC, the Elgin Junior Women's Club. I volunteer for the Community Crisis Center fundraiser, and that's a shelter. And I'm currently a member of the Friends of Judson, and let's see here, part of the Pride Parade Planning Committee, and I was a Elgin City Council member. So thank you.
Thank you. Bill? Bill, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, I was muted. Now I think I hope you can hear me. My name is Bill White. I appear on the ballot as William Bill White. I'm running for DuPage County Auditor. A super quick personal bio. I'm married with 2 adult children. I've also been a lawyer for over 30 years, but more important and relevant to the position of auditor, I served as an elected member of the District 99 School Board, including board president, elected member of the Downers Village Council, including Mayor Pro Tem. I've chaired numerous committees involving local government. In February of 2020, Daily Herald wrote that I have an extensive resume of civic and community work that gives me a comprehensive view of local government. And that's relevant because county government is not really all that different than municipal government. Yes, there are differences, but county government is nearer to municipal government than what, for example, Ken's going to deal with it at the state level. County government is much more like that. So to tie that back to my core campaign of auditor, combining the 2 questions we had, as I see the role of the auditor is to facilitate good government in all county departments. I define good government as transparent, efficient, and effective. Good government is not anti-tax, but it does require that we return fair value to the community for our tax dollars. And that's how we keep the public satisfied with that. The duties of the auditor are established by Illinois statute. I'm a lawyer, I've read that statute. I believe my job is to facilitate good government, and my extensive experience in local government well prepares me to do this job.
Super, thank you. Vern? Vern, there you go.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Vern Tepe, and I'm running for the Kane County Board in District 22. In Kane County, there are 24 different districts, and my particular district is on the west side of Elgin. Currently, I'm an Elgin Township trustee, but my primary business background was in computers. And since I went into what I'll call semi-retirement, I become active in real estate. So I own a series of rental houses, and I also became a registered tax preparer, so I could help the people in my community and make sure that they didn't overpay on their taxes, as our president seems to do sometimes. In addition to that, I've been very active here in Elgin, most recently with the organization that was promoting the creation of a mental health board, and we successfully created that in April, and I'm very proud of that particular event. Thanks.
Thank you. And then we have another panelist who I don't believe has joined us, Corinne Pierog, who is running for Kane County Board Chair. I don't see her, but Corinne, if you are on, tell us. I think the answer is no. We will catch her up when she's able to join us. I understand she was having problems with her internet connection. Okay, so our topic this evening is the economy and finance. So I'm going to throw out some general questions, and I think I'm just going to let you each pitch in rather than me calling on you, unless it becomes a free-for-all, because I think some of these are very general questions, and some of them are more specific to the particular offices you are seeking. But let's just start with a general discussion of the economy and what issues you think are of greatest concern with respect to the office that you're seeking. What are you concerned about from an economic perspective? And I'll let you each jump.
I'll start. Okay. In Kane County has a budget of about $300 million. And only 1/6 of that comes from property taxes. The rest of it comes from other taxes and fees associated with services. And the challenge in Kane County is that they're going to be short somewhere between $15 and $20 million in revenue this year. And that will probably continue on till next year. So the challenge is going to be one of figuring out how to prepare a budget and to tighten up what has already been very limited, very restricted resources on a budget basis. And the current board is dealing with it. And I'm only, my biggest concern is I wish I could be there now and help participate with that.
Super. So I'm going to stop you because I see, and actually this is a good segue. I see that Corinne has been able to join us. And since she's running for Kane County Board Chair, this is very relevant. So Corinne, I'm just going to let you catch up and introduce yourself. And I asked everybody to give a bit of their professional background and how it relates to what they're running for, and then obviously to describe the office you're running for. So go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Leslie and Patrick and everybody. And my apologies for not being here on time. We've had a power outage, and just as I was logging in, the power went down again. So now, knock on wood, maybe it'll stay on for at least the extent of this meeting. If not, I do have a flashlight. Just in case. Oh my goodness sakes. So hi, I'm Corinne Pierog, and I am indeed very excited and hopeful to be the very first Democrat to be elected as Kane County's next board chair. My professional background is I started out as a professor in business communication and in theater, so a little bit of both. I went on to become associate dean for a major Catholic university in New York City, and family changed, got divorced, went down south, and I mean way south in Georgia. And from that experience, I started bringing my classroom into the community and developing programs for very diverse communities, not multilingual like I had in New York City, but ethnically diverse. And as I started doing that, I realized more and more that my passion and interest was no longer in simply education, but it was moving closer to economic development. I went to North Carolina and started the very first African-American Heritage Trail, led the foundation for that, received a significant grant from North Carolina to establish that. And I was afraid it was a little bit too ahead of my time. So I was politely asked by this little southern town to cease and desist. So at that point, I thought it was time for me, and that's the truth. I thought it was time for me to come back to my home in Illinois so that my family could get a chance to meet my children, and my children could get a chance to know their grandmother. And from there, I continued my work in not-for-profit management. I was served as executive director, as well as department chair for a couple of organizations. And I also wanted to go back and get my MBA, which I did. And that really shifted my right and left brain merging together. So I have a creative bent with also a strong business management skill. And I find it to be an incredible balance. So I know Mr. Tepe was talking about the need for budget management. Budgets to me are stories. You can tell where a priority is. You can tell where the mission of the organization is, what their thoughts are. And they're not just about spreadsheets. It's really, really about people to me. So I've run for office before. I've started a couple of organizations very successfully with the latest endeavor, founding the Kane County Democratic Women, which we are all very proud of. We have out of our membership of about 45, Brenda Rodgers is one of them I see online. We have, I believe, 16 candidates from our group, 2 years in existence, and we have that many people, and more of the women are starting to run for local elections, which will be in March. So we have our own little farm team that's going on. I also serve on a number of not-for-profit boards, and one that is primarily serving seniors is going to be giving $2.5 million in funds, pass-through funds from the federal government to senior services here in Kane County. So I've been very active. I've served on the St. Charles Housing Commission, establishing a real precedent, was the first one outside of Lake County to have a housing commission, which means that when somebody would, a developer would purchase land and develop property, there would be money set aside for housing initiatives that would be affordable. They could do a fee in lieu or build, and most of the builders decided to do fee in lieu. And through that, we've got established a beautiful new apartment building that is opening up in St. Charles, subsidized for 65 seniors. So that I'm pretty excited about that, and that should be opening up shortly. So I feel that between my activity in the communities, my professional experience, certainly my education, which includes Six Sigma training, I know process, I know economic development. I have a strong working relationship with not only our city officials have been endorsed throughout the county. I have been endorsed by every congressional candidate or elected official here in Kane County. I have received, except for the Republicans, I have received every endorsement of the state office holders, as well as the represent Kane County, both on the House side and the Senate side. I've got a number of union endorsements, which I'm worked very hard to obtain and respect them greatly. And lots of people, I'm really coming from the community. So instead of working as my opponent has for 21 years as a professional politician, I'm really representing the needs of all of Kane County's members and citizens. So that's my little bit about my professional experience and background.
Okay, thank you. So we were just beginning to talk about, you know, what are the economic issues that are being faced in each office that people are seeking. So we actually started with the Kane County Board. So I'm going to let everybody else circle through, and then we'll come back to you.
Sounds good.
So Ken or Brenda or Bill, you want to comment on what you see the biggest economic issues being?
For me, for the recorder's office, it's to save the taxpayers money by eliminating the expenses, the employee being reimbursed for going to the bank. The recorder's office could actually make deposits with the treasurer's office. And the recorder currently has a contract with an IT company. She pays them over $300,000 a year for their services. And it's my understanding that those services could possibly be performed by the IT department with the IT department with the county, or to look for another contract company to or IT company to do the same thing and to do it better. That's a lot less. I spoke with her recorder, and they're paying $150,000, and we're paying over $300,000 for the same services. Looking over the expenses, the recorder's office paid $2,000 for, I believe it's a printer repair or a scanner repair.
Oops, did we lose her?
Oh, I think we lost her.
Okay, hopefully she will be able to rejoin us in a second. So, Bill, go ahead.
Okay, I got a message that necessarily wasn't being heard the best. So maybe give me a thumbs up or something. The signal if I'm not coming through clear. Can you hear me? I'm trying to speak louder.
You're
Can you
kind
hear
of
me okay?
out.
Excuse me?
My internet's messing up also. If I can finish, I would, instead of paying the $1,000 for a repair, I would have looked possibly replacing the machine. So those are things that I would look at as or look into in saving the taxpayers money in those areas.
Super. Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to see if I can speak up to make this work better. As I listen to Vern talk, I think DuPage County faces many of the same budgetary and economic challenges. So in the role of auditor, my job will be to work with all of the county departments to help facilitate the delivery of services, effective services in these challenging times. Also, we need to we also need to make sure that the goals of the organization continue to be addressed despite these challenges. But we are facing very similar issues to what Kane County is facing.
Okay, Ken?
Thank you. So a big part of our state budget that I want to work on that is very problematic is our property tax / pension issue. So something that I have worked on and is on my website, kmbfor42.com, is a plan to put more into the pensions that have been taken out. So we have had decades of both Democratic and Republican governors taking from the pension and not putting enough in. And then when we start putting things back into the pension, we're paying back at the minimum balance. So by 2045, those payments are going to double. So what I propose is we have to start putting in a little bit more over the minimum balance. So what that entails is creating new revenue, taking that new revenue and putting it into our system. So with my plan, if we stick with this intent, it's a 10-year plan, $2.4 billion over the course of the first 9 years will go directly into making our pensions back to where they need to be. By the year 10, we can start moving that to our property tax. And what that entails is a per pupil, per precinct plan. And it'll help alleviate the stress of property tax. Now, I'm not saying that it'll be a huge amount that will be alleviated, but it will be significant to help the problems that we have here in the state of Illinois.
So Ken, where are you going to fund these additional contributions?
So currently we have approved and legalized the gaming here in Illinois. We have approved the legalization of marijuana sales in here in Illinois. So taking the proceeds from just both of those by itself and putting some of that back into the pension that was taken out will help alleviate that.
Super. Okay. Corinne, do you want to add anything on this topic before we move on? I think you're on mute.
I have many words to say about Kane County's budget. I'm sure Vern mentioned that it's 14,300,000 in debt. But they have worked to close that gap. And let me share with you how they've done that. Recently, in April, there was a $93 million transaction of CARES Act money that came to Kane County. Some of that money is being distributed to local municipalities. All that happens certainly in DuPage County, and Lake County has also received that. You needed a population over 500,000 to get that money. So we got some money. That money was held on to for a very long time, but now the money is slowly going to start being distributed, but approximately half of that money remains with Kane County. So what they have done is that they have established a fund for distribution back into the general fund, that there are actually going to be savings, but now because they have such a huge budget deficit, that savings of that COVID money is the CARE Act money is going to be going back into the budget to balance out any expenses that they may have had. And some of it is payroll. Some of it is things like the new voting machines that they've had, the sorters for mail-in ballots. All of that was part of the capital expense that is all going to be reimbursed. And that's all very much above board. But what I'd like to talk to you specifically about is not that $10 million what they consider about the COVID-19 reduction. It's what's going into 21 that is going to be causing this huge shift. $4.3 million of it was projected. That's wage and salary growth, commodity growth. But the rest of it is something different. These are expenses that are going to be incurred simply because of lack of tax revenue, lack of sales tax revenue, perhaps reduction of property tax revenue. There may even be some reductions in grants that are coming in from both the federal government and state government because of lack of money that's going up that way, unless the federal government decides to print more money, and then who knows what's going to happen. So you have a reduction of revenue, increase of expenses, so you have to decrease expenses. And the largest expense of any organization that helps people is personnel. So they're cutting personnel. The sheriff's department, which makes up a large brunt of the budget, about 32%, is laying people off. They're asking for early retirement. Part-time, full-time people are going into part-time, which means that you have reduction of benefits. They're not filling the positions that are needed. Now, this would be okay if the Kane County budget had not been so incredibly lean for 8 years. There was a study on the mandated services study done in 2017 that indicated, and this is 3 years ago, that Kane County is cut to the bone as it is. There is very, very little room to cut. There may be more efficiencies, as Brenda mentioned, but it's down to its bone. And there was a strike that happened 2 years ago that lasted for 43 days. And this was with the judicial workers, and simply they were asking for a 1 or 2% raise. It takes 15 years from the start of working for the county with this position to get up to your maximum salary level. And that maximum salary level is only $55,000. And some of these people actually have master's degrees. So they went on strike because the chief judge said, we're not going to pay you. I refuse to pay you. We have no money. We're not going to pay you. After the strike was settled, 50% of that workforce left. Kane County is known as a starter county, where people can come in and they learn their experience and off they go. So how are they going to balance the budget? By taking money from savings, by cutting as much personnel costs as they can, a reduction of $150,000 for autopsies. Because they feel that autopsies are too expensive, so we're simply not going to be doing it. You take a look and it gets narrow and narrow and narrow until almost it's completely balanced now coming through savings. Kane County has got, the county itself has got one of the lowest tax rates of any other counties that I've spoken to. Average tax liability assessment is usually at about maybe anywhere from 6 to 8% of a property tax, the overall property tax bill. Ours is 4.3%. Show you how low that is with all the properties out in Kane County. They offered to, as an opportunity, since it has not been raised in 8 years, to raise it by the maximum amount that it's allowed. That amount would only bring in $1,284,639. A little bit of money. Our tax levy is incredibly low. So how to balance it? Obviously, they've taken it from savings. As I mentioned before, they've cut personnel. They've cut any kind of new equipment that they may want to buy. They've cut even use of paper to keep on bringing it down. So if I'm elected, I'm afraid that that opportunity of being in 8 years, I'll be vilified because I will have to raise taxes. But they're setting it up so that this is going to happen. And I'm very much, and I think even if Republican gets elected, it's going to be very challenging to keep the taxes at what they are now without having additional sources of revenue to come in. And that could be something that we can talk about perhaps later on in this discussion.
Well, actually, I was going to say that's a good lead in to my next question, because several of you have talked about ways that you would cut expenses in the various positions that you're talking about. But I'd like to talk now about ideas that you may have for raising additional revenue. Be it obviously raising taxes, but you have thoughts for other ways that the government entities you're talking about can increase their revenues. It's funny. I know when I ran, and actually I'm going to ask a philosophical question later about why people think Democrats are bad on the economy and finance. And, to me, I agree with what Corinne said about the budget telling a story, because much of this, to me, we really ought to figure out what we want our government to do, and then we need to figure out how we pay for it. So, I'm very interested in thoughts you may have about creative ways to raise additional money.
Well, one of the things that they're projecting is tax revenue coming in from the legalization of cannabis. And Kane County initially, I should say, only had one facility that would allow the sales of cannabis, and that was in North Aurora. And North Aurora has made a significant amount of money in tax revenue in being the only dispensary in Kane County. St. Charles has recently opened up one, and there's pockets now that are coming through. Aurora is starting to open up one. And once the communities get their zoning together and where these are going to be, there'll be additional revenue coming into the county. But for some crazy reason, and I can't figure this out, and I know we have a county board member on here as well, the county voted to reduce the maximum amount of tax levy that they could have. So they brought it down, I believe, was maximum is 3.25%. They brought it down to 3.75 to 3.25, which really reduces badly needed revenue coming in. They want it to be competitive, so that if you're next to DuPage County, if this would be cheaper, you'd come across the street to buy it there. But to me, it's lost money, lost potential money. The other thing that they decided to do is not only cut those any taxes from marijuana at all, whether legalization or recreational, but they did not want to have any grow centers, any dispensaries in the unincorporated parts of Kane County. Again, losing economic opportunity. My opponent calls it a vice. He said use of cannabis, whether it's medicinal or recreational, is a vice. It is legal in Illinois. We're no longer in a prohibition. And we should be able to sell it, to be able to grow it, to be able to have craft centers, as many of the other counties have. And this could be a major source of revenue, and not only just tax revenue coming in, but also 8% of total sales of those tax sales from the state aggregate come back to the county or the municipality for training for first responders, for our sheriff's department. And in light of everything that's happening now with social justice issues, to have adequate training going on and having that resource available is incredibly sad that is not going to be allowed to occur in the capacity that it should. So these are good paying jobs with an opportunity to have a substantial tax revenue coming in. So that is one thing that I think needs to be readdressed.
Okay. Anybody else with thoughts on ways to raise additional revenue? Or we'll just move on. I'd also like to discuss a little bit, obviously in the collar counties, there are many small businesses that are a fundamental part of the community that have been very much hurt, both by COVID itself and then by the resulting downturn. I'm curious if you have thoughts about ways to help our small businesses do better in the current environment.
Yes. So I sat down before I decided to run for office with a group of small bar business owners. And the one thing that they mentioned to me is that our vice taxes here, especially on alcohol, is keeping a lot of bars out of business. The average and I'm going to get the percentage wrong, but the average, if you take a bottle of beer, about 1.8% of that cost is actual taxes. That's a problem, especially if you're a small business owner. So that's why I'm a pledge no vote on increasing any more vice taxes here in Illinois. One of the biggest issues we saw with small businesses during COVID is they were already behind. A lot of our big box companies, they were built for things like COVID, just kind of accidentally. For example, Walmart is already a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week business because they pay their employees a lot less than most companies, and they're open all the time. So there's constant stream of revenue. Small businesses don't have that opportunity just because of smaller employment sizes and the cost to keep operation open. So something that I have suggested, especially during COVID, is to give small businesses a leg up. And by that, I mean giving them the option to deliver. So for example, a lot of our smaller restaurants did not have the option to deliver alcohol until we were far into the crisis. So that should have been changed right away. They should have been given that option just so they could compete. We also had a lot of retail places that had to close immediately because there were no other options to stay open. They weren't given the option to do the social distancing because they're smaller. As where Walmart or Target are larger in size, there was more opportunity to social distance. I think we should have allowed the small business owners to set the limit for the store. So maybe only 5 people in the store at a time instead of 50, but we did not allow that to happen, and it put a lot of small businesses out. So I think we have to talk to small business owners and municipalities about what will help the small businesses during situations like COVID.
Well, I think we need to help the people that are hurting, then they'll help the businesses that are hurting. I mean, there's no doubt that every small business is in trouble. So many of them are still closing. Virtually every restaurant you can think of is trying to figure out some way to stay open and get some revenue. But what isn't happening is we're not helping the people that are hurting. I recently organized a fairly sizable food drive here in Elgin. We did it at 6 different locations and we did it over 2 weekends. So at each location, we had more people showing up saying they wanted to get food than we had people that were donating food. So it's showing that the need is there and that the need is tremendous. So I would like to see another stimulus that was like the first one, to try to get things back to some level of normalcy. But with things the way they are in Washington, I don't know how that can happen.
So
I'm sorry, Bill, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, okay. Where I would jump in on this is the role of the auditor has very little to do with business development, but at least currently in DuPage County, the auditor is actively involved in the distribution of CARES funding, CARES Act funding. And to follow up on what Vern said, I'm very hopeful that, I'm hopeful, we'll have to see what happens, that in the next year, we have further stimulus. And what I can do as auditor is advocate strongly that the smaller businesses get at least their fair share so that they can pay their employees, so that the money goes, the CARES Act money goes to the people who need it most. And as auditor, I would be in a position to not control that, but to advocate for that with the elected officials that make the decision to make sure that CARES Act funding meets the true purpose of it, which is to help those who are hurt the most by the pandemic.
I was asked that question yesterday at a meeting of the Chamber of Commerce specifically, and I would like to say that probably the biggest impact and most beneficial thing we can do to help small businesses is, I wish I had a mask, to wear a mask, to ensure that we all protect each other. And not have this, for some of us who believe in masks but may have a laissez-faire attitude towards it, that we're at a restaurant, therefore we don't need to wear it, that we become incredibly conscientious about this. Because I do believe, and I think science proves this, that if we can all together wear a mask for 4 weeks, everyone wear a mask, the COVID crisis would be passing through and decreasing, consistently decreasing. But this seems to be a political agenda right now, that if you're on one part of the ticket, you choose not to wear it. We had a big Trump rally here in Kane County last Sunday. And the shopkeepers are very, very concerned about that because you had 1,000 people walking around without masks. And they're going to be bringing that, if anybody had COVID, to their communities, to their businesses. And they want it to stop. So that to me would be a very simple, incredibly inexpensive solution to be able to stop the spread of COVID so that we can go out to eat. I am, again, and Bill, to your point and to Vern's point, we need to get people back to work. And that's the most important thing. We need to have the paychecks coming in. We need to have salaries coming in. We need to be able to go back to a sensible consumer society so that we can support our businesses. But Halloween is coming up and Halloween is not going to happen. So what happens with Halloween? All of a sudden, candy manufacturers, costume manufacturers, the small businesses that have the haunted houses and all the fun things that happen at some of our local bars, you know, with all the decorations and all of that is going to be gone. And that sounds like nothing, but that's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's being hit. So,
Yeah, and I think your point, and you know, this is obviously something that gets discussed in Washington and is quite controversial, but I think people on our side of the aisle, I think, believe that, well, it's either there's a split between you cure COVID or you fix the economy. And I don't think we view it that way. I think we view it as we need to deal with COVID, and that is in fact the way that we fix the economy. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that point. I took a look at all of your websites, and several of you talk about programs that you would like to advocate for seniors, and a number of those have economic components. So I thought it would be helpful to spend a little bit of time talking about what you would like to do for seniors in our community. Ken, I know that was something that you talked about. Would you like to address that?
Sure. So I have a couple of senior ideas, but the big one for me that involves the economy is doubling the maximum reduction and equalized assessed values of properties from $5,000 to $10,000. I think that's a huge deal, and I think it'll help a lot of seniors. When I put this idea forward, I got a lot of emails from seniors that said, well, Ken, I've worked really hard and I think we should put more of that money to our younger generation. And that really opened my eyes to the fact that even within the senior community, there are so many seniors that do not understand that a lot of other seniors are in a different situation financially. Part of what I do in my spare time is I do a lot of volunteer work to help the needy. And there are so many seniors that have fallen on hard times due to just life circumstances. We have a lot of widows and widowers that were not prepared to be widow and widowers as young as they were. And we have a lot of seniors that are coming of age that do not have children. And with the out-migration in the state of Illinois, we have a growing number of seniors that do not have children within the state. That is a huge problem. And if we look at our state compared to a lot of other states with seniors, we are kind of on top of that trend, and that's not a good thing. So that's why I take a look at maximizing that assessment, because our seniors need that, especially the ones that are living alone and that might have health issues and don't have anyone that can come in and help them just sporadically. You know, as a person with older people in my family, if they need something, I can drive over and help them out. And that's free. But folks that do not have that, you have to consider they have to pay for the Uber to get to the grocery store. They might have to pay for the Uber to get to another grocery store. That costs money. So we have to take a look at what we can do to help seniors, but especially our seniors that are living alone.
Thank you. Other comments on seniors?
I'll be happy to go. It's always disturbing when you come into situations. Not too long ago, I had a senior woman, a woman who was a senior, call me, and she said, "I just need to get some food." Now, even though there are organizations to take care of that, for some reason, she'd never been approached. So I got her number and I made sure that she was taken care of. But seniors want to stay at home as much as possible. And with COVID today, the socialization aspect of things is making them even feel more isolated. So we need to work to do whatever we can to bring that out. Every other week, I know I deliver meals to about 10 seniors. They get 5 meals for a 2-week environment, which helps to alleviate their load of either preparing or buying their own meals. And it's one of the small things that can make a difference. But we need to continue to work with socialization to keep them active and actively engaged.
As I mentioned before, I serve on a board that specializes in seniors, and we're passed through with 8 counties, I'm sorry, for the Older Americans Act. So first of all, we have to make sure on the federal level that the Older American Act continues to get funded, and that money continues to go down to the states. But that money, like much money, is limited in the capacity of the people it can serve. In Kane County alone, it's a startling fact in this very wealthy county that we have 7,000 seniors that are living at or under the poverty level, and that's at about $12,000 a year. So when we talk about issues that I would like to work towards, it's affordable housing. I strongly believe that affordable housing will allow our seniors to be able to live with dignity, so that they can have income or rent based on their income level, which is at about 30%. So that would mean that those seniors would be paying approximately $4,000 annually to be able to support their housing needs. Many of these seniors are fully expected, probably are paying $600, $800 a month if they're fortunate enough to find something that inexpensive to supplement their housing. There is food pantries that they can go to. There are, they've got their health coverage maybe taken care of, maybe not all their prescriptions because of that donut hole, but there has to be methods that the county can provide, and I know that there are through federal grants. So this is going to be something that I'm going to make sure that I continue to push as hard as I can so that we can have our seniors live in the environment, live in the communities where they raise their children and have gone to church or have friends in the community and can provide for them. The second one, obviously, is transportation needs, and that's already been brought up. We live in an area where there is developed with buses in mind. It's a car area, but we have to have multiple modes of transportation, living in walking communities, not building some of our senior centers or senior housing way out where there's no sidewalks, where they have to depend on cars, to allow the flexibility for walkability and to provide stores that are close to them so that they can be independent and not be that social isolation, not be afraid to go out. So this is kind of a dream, but it can be a very easy reality to make sure that we accommodate that a very growing need. And Kane County has about 18% of its population is over 60, and that is going to continue to expand. And in some areas of the county, it's as high as 25.
So we've had a question or a thought posted in chat asking about what the National Guard does when they are not active, I guess, and is there something that they could do to provide manpower when state and local governments aren't able to do that? And I do not know the answer to that, but it's an interesting thought. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the ins and outs of how the National Guard works and if they might be able to help in certain situations.
My understanding that it's in control of the governor, and the governor would have to call out the National Guard.
Yeah, I think that is right. But it's an interesting notion. So one question I wanted to ask is, do any of you, and this may be more applicable to Bill and Brenda, but do you foresee potentially making changes to your office or the way that you function that you think would be helpful in the overall scheme of what you're talking to do? I know, Bill, you said that your office is statutory, so there may not be that much ability to make changes, but I'm just curious if you have thoughts along those lines.
Well, if Brenda will allow me to go first, I can be very brief. The Office of the Auditor has the lowest number of staff members and the smallest budget of any of the countywide offices. The Daily Herald asked me if I saw, as part of the questionnaire, whether I had any questions about the budget. I basically said, I am comfortable I can perform the duties with the current budget. And in the context of COVID, I understand that we need to be aware that there may be some restrictions. We're all staff. There's no capital. We don't necessarily interact with the public. We interact with other governmental bodies. So the very short answer is, I think I would more or less continue the budget as it has been. It's just someone may have staff do things they're not doing now.
Okay. Brenda, you need to unmute.
Is my internet connection. My internet's messed up, so I'm trying to do it on my phone. But for me, I'll just quickly answer here and then go one. For me, years I would constantly or regularly, monthly, to the sheriff department, the police departments, and senior services. For the recorder's office, times seniors are hit with scams. So I would want to make sure that they are aware of any scams that people are trying to or to involve them so that they're not a victim of that. And I think the good way to do that would be to talk to law enforcement and also to make sure that the scams are posted on the recorder's office so that it'll hopefully, save some of our seniors from being a victim of scams. In regards to some things in the office that I'd like to change, well, the recorder's office, the Kane County Recorder's Office, is currently closed to the public. It's been closed since the governor closed it, and they're looking to open back up until December, close to 2021. So one of the first things I would do is to make sure that the office is open to the public as soon as possible, while adhering to COVID-19 guidelines. I would make sure that we get for services that's needed for these, that we more than listening to the minutes. My opponent only received one bid and she was waiting for a month for that. So anytime I would need outside services, I would make sure I get more than one bid to save the taxpayers money. I would get a drop box for people who want to do business with the recorder's office. I was told that it's not feasible because of the importance of the documents. But the treasurer's office have a drop box. I drove by there last week. The treasurer's office have a drop box, and talking to other recorders, they have drop boxes also. I would make sure that the forms are in Spanish because if you look on the website, the Kane County Recorder's Office, the forms are not in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking residents. And I would also take debit and credit cards to make it convenient for our residents. A lot of people don't carry anymore or checks. So I would make sure that all areas in the recorder's office take credit cards. It's my understanding that the copy center does, but I would make sure all aspects take credit cards. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think then great customer service. I called there a couple of weeks ago and it took me 2 minutes and 32 seconds just to leave a message for the recorder. So great customer service, and I would be there. It's my understanding that my appointment isn't in the office that much, so I would be there to make sure that the office is providing good customer service to residents.
Super. So we have about 4 minutes left before the end of the hour. So I'm going to do my philosophical question, which you can weigh in on, and then we'll do a final round. So, you know, I always find it very frustrating that Democrats are not perceived as well on the economy as Republicans are. And I actually think it's demonstrably false. But I'm curious if you have thoughts of how we can do a better job collectively to have people understand that Democrats are in fact very positive for the economy, and that people don't have this perception anymore. Any thoughts?
I'm someone with a finance background, as I think most of our panel is. I think the problem is traditionally Democrats are asked so much about social issues, and those are not black and white issues. Those are very gray issues. When we talk about the economy, however, we tend to approach it the same way we talk about social issues. The economy, it's not complicated. Do we have the money? If we do have the money, how are we allocating it? If we don't have the money, how are we going to get the money? These are very simple conversations, and we tend to kind of drag on, and we lose interest. When we talk about the economy, we have to keep in mind a lot of folks, they're interested, but the span for that interest is about 2 minutes, anywhere between 1 minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So we have to find a way as Democrats to condense our message, really talk about what we need to talk about, and back away from the conversation and do it effectively. I think that is why we traditionally don't get the credit for our economic value, and the fact that traditionally we are better at the economy than our Republican counterparts. We have to talk about it effectively.
I think Ken is right on point. I would phrase it a little bit differently. If the only thing you can talk about and lead about is lowering taxes, you end up getting into trouble because you then have to lower taxes. When, like Democrats, we come up with new ideas for services that can help people, that can help the economy, so that we deal with issues before they become problems, they always look like we're raising taxes in order to pay for it. So we need to focus on the fact that many of the ideas that we come up with actually save costs. Mental health is a good issue. Do you want to deal with it before it becomes a major problem, or do you want to wait until they're in jail and deal with it that way?
Other thoughts?
Let me unmute. You can't go out and make money if you don't have a house to live in. You can't get a good education if you're sleeping in your car. Affordable housing, housing costs money, but it has a wise, very impactful return on that investment. We're a people economy. And that is one thing that I believe separates us and differentiates us definitely from the Republicans. They are spreadsheet oriented. What are the numbers? How are we going to bring them down? Let's manage numbers. But our story is really a reflection of the impact that those numbers have upon our communities. And that's the story that we have to continue to talk about. My opponent talks about insurance mitigation. and he wants to go train people. I did the numbers, and in the last 3 years, over $13 million was paid out for insurance claims. Over $13 million. We're in a deficit of $14 million. Do the math. And what was some of that? Not to have a hostile work environment, to have properly trained sheriffs when they're guarding somebody at a hospital so that the nurses don't get raped, which is the largest one, to have a $7 million claim that I told them about as a citizen, not to break the American with Disabilities Act. So these are issues that can save a lot of money. But the story is, I want to do insurance mitigation. Well, no, you've got to have trained people, and you have to have appropriate staffing and invest in your staffing so that that money can be wisely spent, not spent to pay some poor nurse who was raped and beaten by guns. So it's a different, our story has got to be told succinctly, and that has got to be broken. That thought that because you're a Republican, you can manage my money. No, that's not true. Matter of fact, if you take a look at my facts are right, both Clinton and Obama made the economy thrive.
Right. Actually, we've had somebody post in the chat that 10 of the last 11 recessions started with a Republican president in the White House. And says Republicans are just really, really unlucky, consistently unlucky.
No, they're just bad money managers.
So on that note, we are actually 2 minutes past the top of the hour. I want to thank all of our panelists. I very much enjoyed hearing your thoughts. And I don't know, Patrick or Nancy, if you have any concluding remarks that you would like to make.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leslie, for moderating today, and thank you to the panel. We always run short on time with these panels. There are just so many fantastic candidates all across the district, especially our down ballot candidates that don't get as much attention. So we're happy that we were able to bring this panel to you all today. We will be sharing information about their campaigns, how you can find their websites, how you can volunteer with them, how you can donate to these candidates via social media. We'll also email those out to all of you. I do want to give a few plugs for a few events that we as the Sixth Dems have coming up very shortly. We're going to be doing a voter protection training very soon. So if you're concerned at all about the integrity of the upcoming election, you've heard a lot of what Trump has been talking about with polls, sending people out to the polling locations. We want to make sure that we have a voter protection line set up that's here locally in district that will be able to help people locally. We don't want people calling down to Springfield or calling to Chicago. We want to make sure that we have attorneys here locally and have poll watchers that are tied to that. So if you're interested in all with that, we'll be sending out information about that training very shortly. That's if you want to be a poll watcher, if you're currently a poll watcher, or if you're an election attorney, you can join that training. We also have our next town hall, which is coming up on October the 15th. It's going to be at 7 p.m. So please join us for that town hall. It should be a great town hall with another set of fantastic candidates. And on Wednesday, October the 21st at 5:30 p.m., we're going to have a roundtable discussion. We are co-hosting along with the Human Rights Campaign this town hall with Representative Sean Caston, and we're doing a phone bank directly after that. So if you can join us for that phone bank, that's going to be right in the midst of Real Geo TV. Please join us for that roundtable and phone bank. All right, Nancy, I want to hand it over to you for closing.
Thank you so much for coming. I am really proud of our candidates that we've seen tonight and all through our town halls. And I think we've got a wonderful group of candidates, and I hope they are all elected. I have a master's degree in economics, and I learned things tonight. So this was a lovely conversation, and I thank you so much for coming. And we will sign off 4 minutes after the hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye. Good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Leslie.
See you later.
Great job, Leslie.